What's up, people? It's another edition of the New Breed Podcast, the world's best quasi new metal podcast from two dudes who are really there. I'm one half of your hosting duo, Jay Horsecow. With you, I have my partner in crime, the notorious Tim Anderson Jr. Tim, how is it going?
Great. Be better if
Tim
my
is
computer didn't want to do an update as soon as I turned it on.
it's between Zoom and Windows. It's like, really? Do you have nothing better to do? So joining us once again, a return guest. I think Garry, this is your third or fourth show with us.
At least, yeah.
Garry Brent's from, Memorrhage and 8,000 other projects. Garry, thanks for joining.
Dude, very, very glad to be here as always. I think it is maybe the fourth time now. At least the third, but might be the fourth. Yeah.
I think
Happy
you're
to be
right.
here, guys.
Yeah, we gotta put out a call to Adam Easterling. He's quickly going to be displaced as our celebrity irregular regular, right?
Oh man.
So this week we brought Garry on because we wanted to talk about his newest album, which, unless you've been living under a rock or you're not any aware of any the new metal conversation going on these days, Garry, Anyo, is that how we pronounce it?
Yeah, either Anyo or Anyo. It can go either way. Yeah.
So it just came out. Garry did send us a pre-listen, so we were listening to this after it's for general release. And I guess I'll start off with the conversation with Garry. I view you particularly as the new metal equivalent of a chef on Chopped.
Oh man,
And
that's awesome.
here's why. When they open the basket, they've got all these ingredients, and they have to pick how to put them together.
Jay, can I stop you right there?
Yeah.
This might be your best. What do we call this right here?
Metaphor or opening?
No, this might be your best way to describe someone. This is perfect. Go ahead. I just want to say that.
Okay, good. I'm glad we agree.
Nice.
Because Garry, you literally open up the basket of new metal and you pick all these different pieces. And Tim and I were going back and forth as we were listening. We're like, okay, so I heard a little Slipknot there, but that's definitely some Limp Bizkit, but that's definitely some Korn. And where is that coming from? That's coming from, and for those of you that aren't familiar with Garry's oeuvre, right? Garry listens to and makes music in all different type of genres. Before you joined, I was asking Garry what he's listening to these days, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm back on my younger year brutal death metal kick, like Deeds of Flesh and Suffocation, right?" So this is a new metal guy, right? Who makes new metal music, but Garry, that stuff definitely bleeds into. I think this album is honestly your most abrasive is probably not the right word. Aggressive.
Yeah.
I
can say so.
I think you went for it, and the earlier tracks that you released, I remember I IM'd you like, "Yo, Garry, this shit's wild," but this album is fantastic. So, Garry, let's start off with like, where did this one come from, right? Because this is on the back of one you just had. I think the last Memorrhage album wasn't too long ago, was it?
Yeah. And thank you, by the way, for the analogy, the chopped analogy. That's perfect.
There you go. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. It kind of depicts like just kind of how my mind works with approaching Memorrhage and music in general. But yeah, so like the first Memorrhage was it was last year, June 16th, and then so Anyo is August 16th of this year. I tried to make it to where it was in June, but I just couldn't swing finalizing getting it to go. But hey, back-to-back years of Memorrhage feels good.
Kind of impressive, to be honest with you.
Thank you. Yeah, so kind of I guess like the mindset going into this album from the start. I guess I'll give a little bit of a backstory to fully paint the picture. Like I started writing this album 2 weeks before the first one came out. Just like bit by bit, just kind of like some of the ideas. Like track one is actually the first song that I wrote, Downstone, last June. And I knew that I wanted that to be track one. Like I knew that once I finished the whole album, I just knew that this is just gonna be track one. So my mindset was kind of like, well, I kind of want to begin this album as a logical continuation of the first one. And at least kind of carry that flag for the first few songs or so, and then start, as you say, picking different ingredients of other sounds or other elements of new metal or outside of new metal to come into the picture. So that was kind of my approach, just sort of a logical continuation at first, and then as the album goes along, it takes you on a bit of a different journey than maybe one might have expected.
Yeah, dude, I agree with Jay. I mean, it's just like you're always announcing stuff, and then I'm like, how the fuck does this guy do this? Just how? Like I get home from work. If I play guitar for an hour, I'm like, dude, where the hell do I got time for that? But like,
Yeah, no, I feel you. No
Jay's
kid,
right
no
though, man.
kids.
Well, yeah, there you go. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't either,
yeah,
but
yeah.
That makes three. Yep.
I mean, Jay's right though. Like the you just open the chop box and it's like, all right, death metal, new metal, and you just combine them. It's fucking crazy, dude. But I'll tell you what, man. On this record,
Mhm.
I remember when you sent the full record. I was like, oh fuck yeah. I was like, I got time right now, so I put it on, and I was like, how what? Like this is fucking incredible. I
Thanks,
remember
thanks.
telling Jay,
Yeah,
I was like, dude, I hear, and I want to ask you this before I say it because I don't want to sound like an asshole, but I think I'm
yeah,
right.
yeah.
There's like a big strapping young lad influence on this record.
100%
Okay,
not on the head there. Yep,
perfect.
definitely. I'm a huge Devin Townsend fan, huge strapping on that. Strapping is my favorite of his chopped,
Mhm.
resume.
Yeah,
But yeah, love his stuff, love strapping young lad.
and I'm glad that I nailed that because when I was listening to it, I'm like, dude, I hear like bits of City and Alien on this, and I fucking love it.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
to me, I mean, if you listen to this podcast, I think Devin is one of the greatest musicians of all time. I
I've
mean,
heard you say it. I agree too.
he,
He's
You know,
extremely influential.
I
yeah,
didn't catch it at the time, Tim, but damn, you're right. Now that I play some of the parts back in my head, I can hear the city influence. And I can't
There's
believe I didn't catch it the first time.
oh man.
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked that or pointed that out. There's there's a lot of little things that I didn't do on the first Memorrhage that are definitely on this one with the Devin Townsend influence, like a lot of the like vocal layering. Like there's things that he does that are absurd from a I guess logistical standpoint, where he's
yeah.
layering like 20 to 50 vocal tracks of the same performance just to sound like monstrous. And obviously, you got to mix it right so it's not blowing over the guitars and drums and all that, but you just feel that layering. So like layering the Devin Townsend approach definitely was huge for this one. A lot of like little things adding up. That yeah. So like you said, kind of that city kind of sound where there's just like a lot like whoa, what are all these like little noises and like electronic things happening? Out of nowhere.
Yeah, I don't think the average listener could listen to strapping and be
Mm-hmm.
like and pick out. Sorry, my voice has been fucked up all day.
Oh man.
I don't think the average listener can listen to a strapping record
Mm-hmm.
and figure out the nuances that he does. Even in Devin Townsend,
Right.
like the older stuff, like when he changes from like a verse to a chorus, he does this thing. I mean, obviously the drummer does it, the bassist and all that shit, but he
Yeah.
does this thing where he rolls off of that verse part into the chorus and he layers it to a point where
Yeah.
like it forces you to fucking pay attention.
I
You know what I mean?
yes, yeah,
And
and I
I
think that's a
noticed
point.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I
it's
noticed
almost
that on
like
your record, man.
thank you. Yeah, I definitely did make that a point where it's
Yeah.
like I want this chorus to hit where we're kind of like a listener who may not pick out things. They're like you said, they're gonna be forced to like, whoa,
Exactly.
this is a chorus, or like this is a total change in this part. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you listen to City all over that record, it's just like some of them songs are just the same. You know how like a lot of metal bands will do like four tempos a song?
Yeah. Yeah.
He does songs where it's the same tempo, but somehow he'll do it in halves. But it's you know what I mean? Like if you
Oh
play in
yeah.
144,
Right.
it'll be in like I don't even know
Like
what half of 144 is. We'll say 72.
72 sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
72.
The
Whole
halftime. Yeah.
whole halftime it, but it's still in time of 144. It's fucking
Yes.
amazing
I
how he
love
does it,
that.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it
Like
just sounds
sometimes
like
where like
that.
cymbals might still be going at the 144, but the
Yeah.
kick and snare have gone half, or like
It,
vocals,
dude,
stuff like that. Yeah. I love
he's
that
an
stuff.
absolute fucking genius. And I don't think many people actually understand how talented he is.
I agree. What one of my best friends who I've known since middle school, so we're talking late 90s. He's an excellent guitarist, kind of a shredder type, but he's never really made music on his own, but he's appreciated like all the different music that I've grown to getting into. But he never really like appreciated Devin Townsend like I did, like back when we were younger. And it was funny because we hung out last week or 2 weeks ago for the first time in a long time. And he was like, hey, do you know Devin Townsend? And I was like, brother, that's one of my favorite musicians. He's like, did you tell me about him back when we were kids? I was like, dude, strapping young lad, I told you to check him or check them out back when we were, back then. And he's like, dude, I'm finally checking it out. I'm like, oh man, you got a whole world to get into.
Yeah, you want to talk about a guy with a catalog,
Yeah.
right?
And he's like, I will.
So another thing about this album, Gary, and Tim
Yeah.
and I have we've had this conversation previously where we've talked to our audience about how the importance of having a good set of headphones and listening to music. This is an album that it's good through your speakers. It's better through a dedicated sound system, but it's best through headphones.
Absolutely.
And this is one of the rare albums that I actually took the time to put on a pair of cans and listen. And mainly because there's so much going on, and not in a, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed way. It's like Tim said, did I just hear X? Like, did I just hear that? And then you got to go back and listen to it again. And I mean, you can tell just looking at the liner notes, right? Where you have guests on almost every track, but it never feels like. Tim and I have had this conversation. There's some hardcore bands where they have a feature on every song. It's like, well, how are you going to pull this off live? You're not going to have 12 guest vocalists just sitting backstage waiting for their verse. But your stuff, it feels, I guess coherent is the word I'm looking for. It feels very coherent where it's, oh, that was an interesting flourish. I didn't expect that, but it kind of worked. And yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So how do you do that, Gary? Like, so you write your music and you've got your song structure. You've got these 3.5 to 4 minute songs. How do you pick and choose where to say, okay, I think I want some cleans here. I want some turntables here. Maybe we'll do something harsher there. Like, how does that, do you actually notate this stuff, or is it kind of just by ear? You're like, no, I got to put something there.
I would have to say it mostly is kind of by ear, but in a sort of like, in a calculated approach, like after I've like deemed the song like done, like composition wise, like start, like I'm not gonna like change parts or whatever, like the song is like done, the bones of it, I guess. I will go through a period of where I'm just listening to these songs over and over and over, like in my car, probably in my car. Before, when I was working from home, I'd just be listening on headphones, but now like listening in my car, which has actually kind of given me a nice different what do you call it, headspace of like kind of re-immersing myself with my own material in a car setting. But yeah, I'll do that for weeks, maybe even months, which is what I did with this album. A lot of time of just like digesting and thinking of like I have a notes file on my phone it looks absurd, like it has dates, timestamps, where I'm like, okay, need guest cleans here, or turntable part here, turn guitar down here, like all these little things that I would take notes of for months. So yeah, it was at first, it was kind of like a by ear thing, and then it kind of became a calculated thing where it's like, yeah, we're gonna get really I guess like nitty gritty with every single second on this album. Like I calculated just every little thing where, nope, no one's gonna be here, it's just me. Or this part, I'm gonna take a step back and let someone else show their flavor of like their kind of vocal type thing. Yeah,
it's just wild to hear you talk about it too, because I think a lot of people, especially people who do all music themselves, like they get kind of complacent where they're like, it's good enough.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are like, I'm just putting this out, so it's good enough. But it's people like you that separate that and they go, no, this isn't good enough. This has to be what I envisioned. Because a lot, I've done it before in bands. Like, I'm like, it could be better, but it's good enough. And then when the recording comes out, you're like, fuck, man. Like, we could have made this better.
Yeah. No,
well, it's when you wrestle with something, after a while, you're just like, fuck, I just got to be done with this. Like, I mean, I don't make music, I write. And it's the hardest thing. You're hammering away on a piece and you're like, Jesus, I got to get this done.
When is it going to be done?
But the best, to your point, right? You put it down, you walk away. You come back with a fresh set of ears, or in my case, eyes. And it's like, oh, now I know how to close it off. And now I got to add this piece here and take that away because, it's. And I would think, Tim, you're probably right. And that probably happens more than we would care to admit, or more than artists would care to admit, where they're kind of just like, you know what? I'm fucking done with it.
I see it a lot too.
Take it. Yeah.
And I see a lot of people. Sorry to cut you off.
You're good. You're good.
I also see a lot of people who who experiment with putting unnatural sounds in their music that don't need to be there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, like I see your keyboard in the back, and it's just like, listen, I know you have one, but you don't have to do it in every song.
Exactly. And what's there's like a phrase for it, I guess. Like the power of restraint, where
Yeah,
you know when to not add stuff, where the power is what's already there to let something
Right.
else shine. Yeah.
I have a prime example of that. Dino Cazares and all
Oh
the new Fear
man.
Factory. Stop making the sounds take over everything. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know how that goes. I do like a lot of like their new stuff in general, but it does suffer from what you're talking about, where
Yeah,
it can get bloated, and it's like, man, like
Bloated is a great
just
word,
strip
that's
right?
it
a
When there's
good
down
too
one.
and
much. It's too
yeah,
much. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Let the riff sing the part, or carry the part.
yeah. I mean, like think of songs like "Piss Christ" and
Yeah, yeah.
"Self-Biased Resistor." It's like if them songs were overpowered by synths and stuff, that record would not be nearly as
Yeah.
good.
Right. And I love that like their earlier stuff. I was also definitely heavily inspired by like the early Fear Factory stuff, obviously, which kind of goes hand in hand with like Strapping on Lad City, which was inspired by Fear Factory. But like their power of restraint back then, where you knew it was like an industrial metal album, but it wasn't bloated with like the synths and like all that. There's like flourishes of it, but it's not like a super in your face element.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. Put
mm.
put put the contact player away and just write a fucking riff, bro.
And I appreciate it, right? Like I really appreciate it. There is a space for bands that overplay,
That's
right? I
true.
mean, like,
Yeah.
let's be real here. Probably the best example I could give for all three of us would be Braun Daler from Mastodon, the
Yeah. Oh,
drummer.
yeah.
His
Yeah.
fills, he is legitimately overplaying, but
He is. Yeah.
they have made music around that style of play
Right.
that actually works. Where you don't, when you hear him play, you're like, well, I don't think he's overplaying. That's his lane,
This
right?
thing. Right. Yeah.
But to Tim's point, right, there are some albums where I'm like, oh my God, did they really throw this like synth line in here? Like, how are they gonna? Because I know we joke Tim doesn't leave the house to go to shows, but I still do, and it's like, well, how are you gonna pull that off live? That's the first thing I think of.
Yeah.
How is somebody gonna pull this shit off live?
Right.
MacBook.
Playing it through a laptop. Oh, there you go. Playing
Right,
it through a
right. When there's like
laptop.
6 laptops on stage and everybody's manipulating,
Laptop metal.
fucking
Yep.
Audacity, it's like,
Yep.
this is not for me.
Right.
Yeah,
And
that
I
shit's
know
out of
some people
control.
like that, but yeah, it's like the power of restraint. Got to learn
Yeah.
it. And that's actually something that like I didn't have, when I first started making music a long time ago. It was just like throw everything, at the kitchen sink. And it's just like when you're a musician and like recording yourself and stuff like, or recording others, you kind of like learn to strip things down. And the mute button is very powerful, or the
Oh
delete
yeah.
button, just delete that part and let the foundation of the song carry through.
I think another thing most people don't realize about people like you is not only are you writing music and recording it, you're also going and doing the final thing, which is mixing and mastering. Well, did you send it out for master?
This one I did. Yeah. So man, it was kind of a weird what do you call it, kind of atypical process. So I definitely mixed it and then I sent it for mastering to my friend Angel of the project Fire Tools. She mastered the first Memorrhage.
Okay.
Now, when she sent back her first, I guess her first pass of it, I wasn't happy with it. Not in like any like angry way, just like I think like the low end maybe is just too boomy for my taste, too subby. I need more of the clarity of the guitars and all the little sound design stuff to come through. And we went through a couple rounds of that where I just kept listening back and I was like, I think we still need to dial down that like sub low end. It's just too overpowering. So we eventually kind of came to a compromise and it was weird. She did like a pass and she sent that to me and I almost like basically remastered her master and sent it back to her. It was really weird and it's not really something I recommend to anyone because it's just not a traditional thing to do. But I guess at the end of the day, does it sound cool? Does it sound good? Then whatever steps got there, got there. Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, what the fuck do you need me for?
Yeah, yeah. She kind of did say that to me. But
That's funny.
at the end, we were happy with like this, like almost like a co-mastering job. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, man. It's like people are like, "Oh, yeah, I could do that." No, you couldn't. Like,
right.
do you know how much like patience it takes to sit there and mix your own music? Because it's
I
like,
Takes a lot of time.
a
I don't know
Yeah,
how the hell you can do it. Like, aren't you?
because
I
it's
would think you're too close to it, right? Like,
right.
yeah,
Most of the time, I do think that outside ears should do the finishing job. I guess just for me, like I just have a I know exactly what I really want for it to sound like. And I'll obviously let others hear it because I do like feedback, to gain other ears' perspectives, like on their different systems, or everyone's ears, react differently. Where they might hear something that I might not be hearing. So I still like to take feedback, even though I'm doing the finishing touches.
yeah. I mean, constructive criticism is great
Yeah,
if you can take it.
exactly.
A lot of people can't take it. You know what I mean?
That's
oh,
true.
that's the big
Unfortunately.
part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's got to be especially hard for someone like Jay when he's writing a book. It's like, the editor looks at it and he's like, yeah, this is kind of shit. And
Oh,
you're like, wait a minute.
I've sent my shit out. I have two friends that I use as copywriters because they're
Oh
they're
yeah.
they're they're um they're enough in the world that I'm writing in, so they know to call bullshit. And
Okay.
I've sent shit back, and it comes back, and there's just there's comments
Notes.
everywhere, and there's
Oh
chunks
man.
crossed out, and change the sentence structure. This transition makes no sense, and it's honestly, I would never have seen some of that stuff because I'm too
Yeah,
close to it. Right, my
that's a good
head's down,
point.
and I'm hammering on it. Then
Yep.
when I pick my head up and I send it to them, and 2 days later I get back all these changes, my first thought is always fuck. But then I read
Yeah.
through it and I'm like, yeah, yeah, you know what? They're
Yeah.
kind of right. Like this is kind of a janky transition, or maybe this does. I kind of missed the point here, and
Yeah.
it's you're right, Tim. That's there you go. That's that metaphor, right? And
Constructive
it's
Yeah, yeah,
criticism
dang,
goes a long way
yeah.
in
definitely.
anything, in any art or whatever you create. Constructive criticism really helps.
You know what I started doing, man? And my buddy gave me this idea because me and my buddy Bob, we like make beats together.
Oh yeah.
And he mixes and masters in Logic because he's an Apple guy. And I was like,
Okay.
I was like, I have Logic, but I don't know how to work it. He's like, take some time, learn it. So that's what I've
Yeah.
been doing this last month. But like, I noticed I was like, I'm gonna write a song, like a metal song in Logic, and for some
Mhm.
reason, it sounds 30 times better than Reaper. I don't know. I
Interesting.
know there's nothing. It's the same fucking preamps and converters going through it. But I
Right.
swear to you, it sounds amazingly better. I don't know
Hmm.
why.
Wild. Maybe,
It,
yeah, just like workflow led to it maybe sounding better from your
yeah.
point of view. Yeah.
And that's what I was going to ask you. Like, do you use the same workflow every time? Like, same interface, same doll? Like, are you doing the same
Yeah.
stuff, or do you ever change it up?
Yeah, I've still been using Reaper. I think, man, yeah, like the last time that I did not use Reaper for like actual published song or material was Pro Tools, but this was 2008, and it was like a
Wow.
demo that I made on Pro Tools because I was learning it at the audio school I went to because
Okay. Okay.
industry standard. But then I was like, man, I'm not really into Pro Tools, and then my buddy turned me on to Reaper back then. But yeah, just been doing the same thing through Reaper. I think it's just because it is a comfort zone thing for me, and it allows me to, I guess, be really efficient. Like I know exactly what I want to do, so that actually kind of adds to how I'm able to like make stuff fast. So I just like know exactly what to do in Reaper in terms of like the technical standpoint. Yeah.
Shortcuts, stuff like that.
Shortcuts. Yeah, I love those.
Yeah, Reaper's a great tool, man. But I'll still use it all the time. But like,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, this Logic is it's
I'll
the
have to give it a
workflow is
try
so much
sometime.
quicker, man.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard great things about it. I heard it like a lot of electronic musicians really love it. They love the ease of use with it,
Yeah.
and like pretty much heard not. I've never heard a bad thing about Logic.
Yeah, man, they really killed that program, man. It's
Yeah.
hard to learn, but yeah, I think you should really try it, man. Even if you went to like a Cubase or like a Presonus or
Oh,
something, you know what I mean?
okay. Yeah. Shoot, I'll
It
give it a
might
shot.
it might give you like a different taste of like doing something because for some reason, man, like even my MIDI drums just sound better through it. It's fucking
Wild.
crazy, dude.
Huh. That's crazy. Yeah,
I'm
give it a
like,
shot.
God damn, that sounds heavy as shit. I'm like, I'm never getting this heavy in fucking I don't know what it is,
Damn.
man. It just sounds
Huh.
better.
Watch,
So,
there's going to be some checkbox somewhere that you didn't realize that's checked.
yeah, right.
That's totally changing everything. You're like, fuck, that was it the whole time.
Oh
Right.
man.
Same monitors, same headphones, same
Same
guitars. It's the same
yeah.
everything.
Damn.
It's wild. Did both of you guys see did you see the Sound City documentary with Dave Grohl?
No.
Well, at one point they're talking about he's they're talking about the soundboard and all that, but then they go into the difference between recording to tape and recording to a computer when you need to make a change. And they actually show him putting the tape in the machine, getting the razor, cutting it, slicing it, splicing it.
Splices, yeah.
And then they cut to the computer where it's click, click, drag, click. And it's like the whole world just changed. The whole world changed. Like, and I can't imagine. Like, we got to get one of the guys from Morrisound on. Was it Scott Adams? I think was his name, right? Scott Burns.
The
Scott Burns.
Scott Burns. Yeah.
I would love to get him on and just talk about that because I mean, imagine sitting there and seeing that change and going, "This is going to change absolutely everything about my job."
Yeah, man.
There was some people back then that were just like, I'm not fucking going to digital. And you're sitting there and like, it was Al Jurgensen. He was like, nah, we're not going digital.
Man.
Remember in the book, Jay?
Yeah.
He was like, we were 4 a.m, hammered, cutting tape, and then we fucking mashed it together wrong. And then it's like, Pro Tools comes and like, I think he was talking about that on Filth Pig. I'm pretty sure on Filth Pig, he was like, we just went digital because I don't remember the whole fucking thing anyway because he was so bombed the whole time. Like the record came out 2 years later. He's like, I don't even know this record came out.
If you want a wild trip down memory lane, go on YouTube when we're done and find the video for Nine Inch Nails Gave Up.
Okay.
So this is the video. They recorded this in Le Pig Studios, which is the Manson house, the Sharon Tate house. And at one point they cut to Flood at the mixing desk where he's using this like 1991 mouse, the equivalent of Pro Tools. Just look at that UI and
That's
both are going to
awesome.
go, what? This is like, it must be like looking at a caveman, like a modern man looking at a caveman, like, yo, what are you doing?
What are these? What is
this stupid? Like, that's insane. But
I gotta watch that. That reminds me of something that I watched a month ago about are y'all into Aphex Twin? That he's brilliant guy. I can't remember what the video is, but you might just have to search it up on YouTube where it's like the history of Aphex Twin and the batshit software that he used in the 90s. And it's esoteric shit that no one else was using. Like it absurd. Yeah. But
I will find that.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, he's a madman. He's legit a madman.
Legit,
right?
One of the greatest of original madmen for sure.
That story, I think it came out of the book Generation Ecstasy, which is out of print. You got to find it. But it's the story of the drug MDMA and how its rise mirrored the electronic music scene, the techno scene in Europe. But they talked about at one point how they never named the guy, but they said a famous electronic artist was contacted by a record label to do a remix for a famous industrial artist. The electronic artist never did it. So on the morning when the record label representative showed up, he basically answered his door, said, hold on, grabbed a bunch of scratch tracks and gave it to him and said, there's your remix.
Wow.
And the subsequent artist loved it and released it. Now, if you think about this, and I've never heard it confirmed. We got to do some internet sleuth to confirm it. If you remember the Further Down the Spiral EP, the two songs by Aphex Twin on that Nine Inch Nails EP sounded nothing like anything else.
Yeah.
And well, there you go. He was hammered and just handed the guy some scratch tracks. It was like, Gary, it's the equivalent of you opening the door and Tim saying, yo, I'm here for my feature. And you going, here, take this. Like, kind of wild.
Add this in.
Yeah, kind of wild. But
Give it a shot. Yeah.
It worked. But yeah, a lot of those, him and Square Pusher. And I think I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. Aucher? Aucher?
Is it Autecker?
That's it. Those guys were really pushing.
They were
pushing
like the
into
first
boundaries.
Three of like they did their own thing. Yeah.
They were pushing into worlds where it was like, yo, let's just kind of go for it and see what happens.
And it still sounds alien, like a lot of it does. Like their earliest stuff. It's crazy how ahead of time they were. Yeah.
So I know we're here to talk about Anyo, but I'd be really fucked up if I didn't do this. We need to talk about that known Demise record because that shit is incredible.
Oh, dude. Okay, yeah. No, I'm happy to talk about it. It's man, I wish that I got more ears on it because it's a sleeper, man. It's a fun one.
Dude, I remember listening to that and I texted Jay and I was like, "Have you heard this yet?" And he's like, "No, I'll check it out." I'm like, "Do it," because that record, man. So, and I know it always sounds like, all right, the guy's on, you have to kiss his ass. We're not. You would know if we were.
Yeah.
That record's fucking great, dude.
Thank you.
Seriously, amazing fucking record, dude. It's just like I listened to it, I'm like, there's no way. Like before I turn it on, I'm like, there's no way this dude's putting out another banger this quick. It's just not happening. I go through 2 tracks and I'm like, I don't know what I was thinking. I should have known. Like, dude, Jesus Christ, dude.
That album was really fun to put together. So yeah, I'll give like kind of a little backstory on that. I wrote all those the instruments in a matter of about 2 weeks last year in September.
Of course.
I was just going through like a weird time. And it was originally going to be like, I already knew I didn't want to do the vocals for it. I just wanted to do the instruments. Because I wanted just a different flavor vocally that like I couldn't do. And also to like differentiate it from like Memorrhage sonics. But it was originally going to be a vocalist from one of my older projects, but we kind of had a falling out. So I kind of just put a feeler out on Instagram and I think I might have put it out on Facebook too and Twitter, where it was just like, hey, I've got a whole album done instrumentally. There's no name yet for it. We'll figure that out down the road. Looking for a dedicated vocalist, and I got a few like auditions or like messages, I guess I should say, and people like, hey, can I send like a recording? And I was like, yeah, let me send you 2 songs. Can't remember which ones it ended up being, but I sent like 2 of the songs and I was like, record your own vocals over this. You don't have to do like the entirety of the song, just like, you know, a good bit of it, like write your own lyrics, whatever vocal patterns you want to do. And I got a few back, but the guy who ended up, you know, being on it, Destin of Hitbox, I just instantly fell in love with his vocals. He was a champ. He wrote all those lyrics and vocals in about a month, I guess back in February or so, and sent them all to me, mixed them in, and we settled on the name Known Demise. And yeah, it was crazy. Definitely want to do more with that project for sure.
Yeah, I was hoping you were gonna say that. So what was the basis of that record? Because I know you said before it was like you had some Coalesce vibes in there, and
yeah,
it's kind of like a hardcore metalcore record. But to me, it was more than that. It was just hard to describe what it really was. So what would you actually say it is? What were you going for?
Man, I would say like definitely kind of like a tribute to like the 90s metallic hardcore sound. But obviously, you know, with some modern touches, not too much, but just a little bit. But like almost as if like, yeah, like a Coalesce or like that's Swedish band Breach, like if they were into nu metal, like just a little bit. Obviously, you know, it's not like a full-on nu metal thing, but like if they were like into it, if they like embraced like Cold Chamber, like the stuff from the 90s, like if they were touring with those bands or playing a festival, maybe I guess I should say, like Vision of Disorder, even a little bit of that influence. Yeah, so that was like kind of my headspace going into it. Instrumentally, I knew that like whoever was going to be the vocalist, they would, you know, impart their own influences or you know, flavor to it. And I think he's a little bit younger than me, or maybe he's like 30 or 31, and I'm about to be 37, so he kind of came at it at a different approach. Like I don't know if he's like super familiar with like the like late 90s hardcore and like metalcore, but I was just like, that's what I'm going for, but you do you know, just do your thing. And he really
Coalesce makes sense.
Yeah.
Coalesce makes sense. That I'd even say like maybe even close to some of the old the Jade Tree hardcore stuff, right? Like Breathe or Resist and sort of vein.
Yes,
right?
Because
like
it has that punkiness to it.
Which is funny that we're naming bands that come from a specific geographic area, right? They all come from that weird, it's not the Southeast, but it's kind of close to it. I definitely heard that. I think I actually texted Tim back and I'm like, dude, how does Garry sleep? Like, I don't think he sleeps. He just plugs himself into like his USB port and recharges while he's working. Because yeah, this is wild, man. It's so everybody listening, the album is Sick and Cold and Blue by Known Demise.
Yep.
So well, if I can remember, I'll put a link in the show notes. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
Garry Strikes Again should be just the next title, right? And it's just
yeah. Yeah, no, that was a fun record to make. Definitely gonna do another one, maybe next year. I'm kind of slowing down a little bit in terms of being able to record, just because like I'm delivering, I do delivery work like every day now, pretty much. Kind of on call during the day, and then at nights it's sort of like I pick and choose. Like, oh, I need some money. Got to drive tonight. But yeah.
What's a genre, Garry, that you've never touched on that you're like, maybe this is like the last my last adventure will be to going into something where let me change the question. Is there any genre that you're interested in, but you're like, I've never really messed around in that sandbox. Maybe I could give that a whirl. Anything that intrigues you to that extent?
I think so. It would be like old school sound, like old school country, like not like pop country, but like legit, like the root,
Merle
like,
Haggard, like the old stuff.
The roots of like country style music. I think it would be fun. I really don't have a background of how to even start that. I know it's more stripped down music, like acoustic guitar and country singing, but I don't really have like that background. But I find it intriguing, like sonically, like the production for that kind of stuff. Like, would it be a little bit more lo-fi or kind of mid-fi? I'm not sure. But that would be fun to do. I don't know when, but someday. Yeah.
You know what I think you could do really well?
Yeah.
Is like a behemoth sound.
Oh man. Okay.
I for
like
something
big black metal, Tim. Is that what you're thinking?
Something tells me that you could just nail a behemoth emperor kind of sound. I don't know what it is, but I just feel like from like the stuff I hear in Memorrhage and stuff like that, it's like the way you can layer stuff. Because if you listen to them two bands, most of that power comes from layering.
A lot of
the vocals are layered. Everything is layered in there.
Yeah, and
I think you can nail that shit, man.
Thank you. Man, count me in. Yeah, that'll be a thing. It'll be a thing sometime for sure.
I get where you're going, Tim. The big room black metal. Right?
Yeah.
Like Behemoth, Emperor, Wolves in the Throne Room.
Wolves in the Throne Room, yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's sort of like meant to be heard in a giant room. Yeah.
Right. Filling up the whole room. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see it.
Yeah, I mean, just, that early Emperor stuff is just, I mean, that shit is, a lot of bands have tried to replicate that. They don't even come close.
I agree. They were masters at what they do. Like, and at a young age, they were like teenagers when they started, which is absurd. Like there's a lot of nuance in those that people like they don't fully realize how much nuance went into those. Yeah,
I think that shit is too mature for most black metal kids to even comprehend, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because they're attracted by the mayhem, burzum, like the whole, hey, this is
the violence,
this is subversive. So we're gonna get into that. They don't realize that there is some actual serious musicianship. Some of these bands, right? Yeah, some of these bands, it's not just recording on a boombox in some basement in Sweden somewhere. Like they're actually putting the reps in.
Like it's essentially classical music but distorted, and hard.
Yeah.
Like, and those are just crazy compositions.
I mean, listen to Spiritual Black Dimensions. It's like from Demise. It's like that record. It sounded like shit, but that record is fucking good, man.
It's a monster. Yeah.
And that's another band like them, Cradle of Filth. They all get shit on because they went mainstream, and I totally get it. It's the cool thing to do, but like every time someone says to me, "You like Filth?" I'm like, "Fucking love that band." They're like,
"Dude, yeah,
why that band? Oh, Danny Filth sucks." I'm like, "All right, yeah, but he sucks. But he's been doing this for 30 years. What have you?"
Yeah, I mean, every band reaches that inflection point where you reach a certain point of notoriety in your underground world where you have to make the choice. Do we become more palatable to a less discerning ear and and play fucking arenas, Avenged Sevenfold, right? Or do we kind of double down into our own sound, happy in the niche that we're in, and this is just the music we make, and that's your Sick of It Alls, that's your All Out Wars, that's the hey, we like what we do, and we're just going to keep going this way, and
Yeah.
If you don't like it, well, okay, but this is the way we want to go. And
Yeah.
it's interesting, in the grander scheme of things, it's interesting to watch bands try to navigate that, right? Because you have, not to throw shade, but you have a band like Code Orange that was on the cusp that
Yeah.
tried to make that cross into the more palatable, more commercial sound, and it just did not work.
It didn't take.
And then you have a band like Knock Loose where I would argue that they have reached that same point,
Even
and they
bigger.
actually doubled down and what
Yeah.
got more abrasive and
It-
more harsh.
and that's crazy.
And I'm telling you, man, when I went and saw that show, it was sold out, and I did not recognize one damn person in that room except for the guy I went with. And
Damn.
I've been going to shows in Philly for fucking 30 years now. So it shows you the draw that they've got, that you can create an audience
Yep.
being left of or right of center, off center, like being different, different.
Just just keep going with what you're doing, growing off of that, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as fans, we especially in extreme music, we listen to so much of this stuff that our lizard brain can almost tell when it's authentic and when it's a cash grab.
That's very true.
Like
yeah.
we can tell. Like, I mean, everybody
instant.
Yeah, everybody shit on the example Tim and I always use is the Suicide Silence album with Eddie, the first album, where everybody hated it.
Oh yeah,
and they were literally trying to do something new and different because their singer was gone. I mean, and now turn around, that album is revered. So I want to ask you, Gary, with all the collaborators and the features, did you know all these people and you're just like picking up the phone, like cold calling, like, yo, it's Gary, I need some scratches? Or like, how does that come about? Do you just have do you know in your head, okay, I think I want to get Tim to do this, but I'm going to get Jay to do this? How does that process work?
It was
good question.
Yeah, it was kind of like that, where they were like, it was thoughts circling in the back of my mind, like as I would be listening to my songs, like, in their mostly finished but not completely finished versions. I'd be like, yeah, I think I might want so and so to do this here. Yeah, so yeah, it was just kind of a process of I would kind of write myself a list of potentials, and then, because obviously not everyone's going to be able to say yeah, due to availability or time, what have you. So I would just message people and be like, hey, I've got a spot or spots on this album, on this song and this song and this song, would you be able to do something here? Would you be interested? And most of the time they'd be like, yeah, when do you need it by? And most of the time I try not to give a deadline, but actually I think that I should, because I think deadlines breed creativity. From my own experience, giving myself deadlines. So I think moving forward, like with other guests, I think I do need to give deadlines. So yeah, most of the time I was just like, whenever you could get around to it. So sometimes people were putting it off, but I probably should be a little more strict with that, just because like it puts like a structure to
well, it's a human thing, right? Like working in my job, it's work expands to fill the space provided. If you tell me I got 2 weeks,
yeah,
I'm going to do it.
You're going to do it.
1 week and 6 days, I'm going to go, shit, I got to get this done.
Yeah, I got to get it done. Yeah. So I should, that's actually, I think, one of my like weaknesses, I should say, in life. I'm a little maybe too loosey goosey with stuff like that. So I think I should be more like, put my foot down. You got to do this within the next month. But yeah, so I was just messaging people on Discord or like emails, or like Instagram, just wherever, I know these particular friends or guests. And most of them said yeah, and I got all this stuff in, and it took a little while to integrate, but it was worth the wait.
So they recorded stuff and then sent it to you. You didn't just actually give them like the project file. Okay.
Right, correct. Yeah. So they would just send it, and I would just kind of note the like timestamps where I'm like envisioning, like, okay, that's where I think I want your spot to be. And sometimes I would be like, if you want to go a little over, like add other stuff in case you're feeling it. I can always obviously edit it down if I feel like it needs to be edited down. Just don't be offended if I do. And they're like, yeah, no, that's cool. Like the solo on Out of Mind is Orion from Drop Spike.
Nice.
And which is kind of that one was a happy accident, because I didn't go to him for a guitar solo. I actually didn't even think about having a guitar solo on this album anywhere. But he actually told me, he was like, hey, do you want guitar solos on this? And I was like, go for it, record one and send it to me. I wasn't thinking about it, but I'm happy to oblige and see how it sounds. And he sent one, and it went a little longer than what I wanted it to do, like for the space of the what do you call it, composition. But I was like, man, this is incredible playing. I'm gonna edit it down just a little bit, but most of your solo is gonna be there. So, and he was real happy with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really awesome. So, Garry, I know we're quickly approaching the hour mark.
Oh
What's
yeah, yeah.
next? What's next for you?
Man, so right now I'm actually working on, I don't remember if I mentioned this to you guys before, but I had this old well, I guess it's old now, but this old solo death metal project called Sallow Moth. And I had that from 2016 to early 2022. I didn't do nearly as much of an output like in those span of years. My workflow was just not as robust as it has been these past like 2 years. But with that said, I'm kind of reviving that project, and it's kind of I guess like a, I don't know if the word all star is what I want to use, but like a grab bag of different death metal flavor. There's a little bit of like that brutal death metal in there, a little bit of like the like death style, like 90s progressive death metal sound, like not overly technical, but like, oh, that's not a 4/4 time signature right there, kind of thing. So like a little bit of that, and then a little bit of I guess like weird death metal, like some of the like dissonant kind of stuff that's been happening in recent years. So it's a grab bag of death metal. And it's gonna be probably just a 3-song EP that comes out like as the return for that project. And then I'm gonna do a full length that will probably include all three of those songs on the EP. I just kind of want to see how the EP does at first. But I'm probably gonna drop that maybe in the next, but before the year ends. I'm almost done with those 3 songs, and then the full length, I want to shop around to like a premier like death metal label, because I think it's going to be really cool. This actually kind of ties in with Tim, with what you were saying, like layering. Like I think it obviously not in the Behemoth or like Dimmu or Emperor side of things, but this is going to be, I think, a big sounding like layered death metal album. So I really want to shop it around to a label, maybe like $20 spin, or like one of those cooler, newer death metal labels. So that'll be next
Stomp,
year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm loosely friends with him. Oh, I know him online. I'm not like close with him, but I know him. Yeah.
Yeah, that dude, Unique Leader would be a great thing to send, or a great place to send to.
Yeah. And that's funny because I've been listening to a lot of stuff that was on there. Early 2000s catalog. I love that stuff. Yeah, it's
me and
crazy.
Me and Jay are pretty much the Unique Leader reaction podcast.
Yeah. One night we did reaction vids, and it was, I really think out of the 18 that we did, we used to do them all at once. Yeah. I think out of the 18, Garry, no shit, 10 of them had to be Unique Leader. And Tim and I are drinking as we're doing these. So by like the 7th one, we're like, hey, it's Jay and Tim from the Unique Leader podcast. We're doing another reaction on Unique Leader. Like they have I actually am really happy with how these boutique labels have sprung up, and they have a sound, and they have an aesthetic that they're going for, and they nail it. Like, I mean, I really do think, variety is the spice of life and all that jazz. But I would say you put a Days, a Unique Leader, a Maggot Stomp up against what we know as the big Columbia BMG type houses. Right. I think these smaller labels eat their lunch, because they can afford to be nimble and to try different things. And when they get something they like Tim and I, we got to get Lumpy from Days On, because he obviously has an ear for a certain thing. And the stuff that he picks out that's in that orbit he always nails it. Even like $20 spin, right? Witch Vomit and all, and I think Two Mold was on them for a bit. Like, you can tell when the guy or the gal running the label, they have an ear for a particular thing. Right. And why wouldn't you go for it?
It's like they really know how to carry out their vision, and then putting their stamp of approval on something. And it's like that takes a lot to like lead a label like that and let it be successful. because like yeah, if you have that vision and you like you said have that ear for something, it can lead to special things.
Jay, what's that EP that I wouldn't shut up about for like 2 months? That
Final resting place.
yes. That dude, have you heard that?
Oh yeah, yeah, dude, that
Yeah.
yeah, that's sick. Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember.
I love that shit.
I didn't expect it. I was like, whoa, this is really good.
I
Yeah,
And it
it's
tricked me too, because I was like, how did I
yeah,
not know this came out in 1995? Because they wrote into
right. They wrote
Bandcamp
it.
Yeah.
95,
Yeah.
and I was like, how the fuck did I not know this? And then I
Well,
was like, oh,
And
there are bands that it's not even tribute, right? Just that's what they loved and that's what they grew
mhm.
up on and that's what they want to play. Tim and I were just talking about Killing of a Sacred Deer.
yo,
So
that shit is
This is
hard.
Coulter from Serration
Holy
and
shit.
World of Pleasure and
Okay.
Mortality Rate. This is his
I haven't heard
deathcore
that yet.
project. And
Okay.
I sent it, and then I'm like, Tim, you gotta listen to this. It's Coulter from Serration. And then he replies, I got 10 seconds into the first song. I know I'm gonna love this thing. Like but
Nice.
he nails it. Like he gets it. He's like, okay, this is what I'm looking to do. Nails it.
That's awesome. I gotta
Yeah,
check that out because
yeah.
I've been seeing that name float around like just this past week. It's been seeing it. And I was like, I know there's a movie named that, but I didn't know there was a project of that. Yeah, that's cool.
It's funny because when it came out, so every Friday I get to work before probably anybody. So I
Hmm.
just go through all the new releases, and I kept seeing the Killing of a Sacred Deer, and I'm like, that fucking name's stupid. So I skipped over it. I sent all the stuff that I thought was good into our Slack chat, and I was like, cool. And then Jay, it was like literally the minute I got done work, he's like, have you heard this yet? And I was like, no, but I'm going to listen to it now since you said, because I love Serration. I think they're
Yeah.
the best metalcore band out right now. Anyway,
Serration sick. Yeah.
I put it on 10 seconds in that snare and that moshi. I was like, Jesus
Ooh.
Christ, turn that shit up. Boom.
Yeah.
That
Hell
shit's
But
yeah.
sick, dude.
I
it's
gotta check
back
that
to
out.
I mean, as older guys, Tim and I can appreciate it's these young guys that not only are they all in 8,000 bands, you yourself be one of them, Gary, right?
Right.
8,000
Yeah.
projects
Right.
crossing multiple genres, but
Yeah.
it's impressive how they can go back and nail so Tim just said the snare, right? They can nail
Yeah.
an exact moment of, I remember when that snare sound was the thing.
Was like the
I
pot.
remember when
Yeah.
that type of structure was the thing. And
The,
these young artists, I won't call them kids or young artists,
right.
find a way to just fully encapsulate it, right? Like
It's crazy.
it's scarily impressive, actually.
I feel like that trend or that phenomena is just going to keep going because it's like young artists are much more I guess like absorbent, like they absorb
Mm.
things, they absorb nostalgia and like or our nostalgia, like things that were from the past, they can absorb it from a different perspective and emulate it really well. It's pretty cool to see.
It is wild. I mean, Tim and I, we tried to get him on, and then he had COVID, and schedule never worked out. But we were trying to get the guy from Wax Vessel on because the stuff that
Dude,
he does, like
yeah,
he's not even a label. He's like, yo, there were bands
right,
that I really liked, and I
yeah,
want to put out their shit
I
on
got a few
vinyl.
Wax Vessel records. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like I showed I forget who I was hanging out with, but they were into vinyl, and I said, "Have you ever seen this?" And he took one look at it. He went, "Holy shit, that's a vinyl guy." I'm like, "Yeah, man. Like he's no joke, no joke."
It's crazy. Yeah. Just the level of like dedication, like passion for it. It's crazy.
Yeah,
I
it's
just
good
put that
stuff.
I just put that record in the chat for you. So you might
Oh,
want to click on
nice.
that before we get out
Yeah.
of here.
I copy that.
Awesome.
That first 10 seconds is just mayhem. I love it.
Hell yeah.
All right,
Love
so
it.
Gary, we're gonna get you out of here. So Gary, if first of all, I want to thank you for joining once again. Right, it's always a pleasure. Maybe we have Gary back on and we'll deep dive Strapping Young Lad City. Right, I
Dude.
mean,
Fuck
we
yeah, dude.
when this almost turned into that episode, I had to rescue it because we almost went down that path. Gary, if people are looking for you, want to find your music, maybe find some merch or whatever, where do they go?
Yeah. So for Memorrhage, specifically, got to go to memorrhage.bandcamp.com. Got everything there. And from there, if you want to like branch out to like my other projects, other albums from the past or things that are upcoming, I have like a dedicated Bandcamp that's lilongisla.bandcamp.com, and that's LILANGISLA.bandcamp.com, and that's kind of like it's not a label, but it kind of like looks like one where it's just a page that has all my other Bandcamp projects connected. So you can go there, or if you just want to check out Memorrhage, go to the Memorrhage Bandcamp.
He's got
Awesome.
so many releases, it looks like a record label. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
It really does.
It might as well be one. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's 8,000 different bands. So you're like, is this
Yep.
somebody's label? It's wild.
I got one challenge for you before we get out of here.
Yeah.
Write me a Behemoth, Demu, Emperor track. One track.
Okay.
Just do it.
Let
Because I know you can do it.
book it. We're gonna. It's gonna happen. It'll do.
I'm giving you a
happen.
deadline.
Okay. Yeah.
Since we're talking deadlines, by the
Yep.
end of October, I want to hear this song.
You're on. It's happening. Yeah.
Perfect.
Fantastic.
Hell yeah.
So,
Fucking love it.
folks that are listening and watching, tune in. Tune in at the end of October. We have Garry back on when we review the results. So
Hell yeah.
once again,
wait, Jake. Sorry. And I got one request. You got to use the black metal keys in it. I've got it. We're gonna be locked and loaded with that. Yeah. I love it. Can't wait.
Tune into that episode when we're all wearing corpse paint. I want to thank Garry once again for coming on. It's always a pleasure. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, watching, listening. New Breed _ podcast on both Twitter and Instagram, newbreedpodcast@gmail.com, 267-297-4627 for any voicemails you would like to leave us. Find us on r/newmetal. Find us on our Facebook group. Until next week, Wednesday, 12 p.m., new episodes. Fridays, 12 p.m., reactions. It's Jay, Tim, and Garry saying, cheers.
Later.
Peace.